I'm a medical intuitive now, and I'm working like in energy and removing demons and entities. It's like such a huge stretch for people. I have to keep a bucket beside me in sessions, but I am vomiting up entities. You're not going to take on things if you are living in a high vibrational state. The emotions of anger, frustration, judgment, jealousy, envy are emotions that bring your vibration down. You become more open to those kind of attacks. There isn't anything to be feared there. Because we are just love and light, and everybody just wants to be brought back to the love. And some Buddhist monks would say up to 80% of physical ailments are due to past lives, which is completely crazy if you think about that.
Guy here. My beautiful guest today is Peggy Oberthier. She is a medical intuitive. I've actually known Peggy now for about, 6 years, maybe even longer, as she was a client at our retreats, and she's been several times actually. But we get into the whole conversation today, and in a nutshell, she helps people move stuck energy from the body. But this conversation goes really deep. It's really fascinating. And there's a lot of wisdom in here today. So I certainly encourage you to check out the whole conversation. Now, we get into the conversation as well around negative energy and entities and things like that, which is, I don't often have these conversations on the podcast, but I'm always curious to explore these conversations as long as they're spoken about in the right context, because these conversations are not here to instill fear in anyone, but to actually just bring it to light and how we can navigate these things in the right manner, if that makes sense, because we kind of come up against these things in our own work as well. But a fascinating conversation. Like I said, there's a lot in here. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know where you are in the world. Drop a comment below. What are your experiences? What are your thoughts from all of this as well? It's always good to hear from everyone. And of course, if you want to join us in a retreat somewhere around the world, I'm not sure when this will be going live. We might still be in Bali, Croatia. Yeah, oh gosh, I'm flying to New Zealand this weekend. It's so exciting that we're getting this work out there more and more. There'll be links below, including a free meditation as well. That's below if you want to get started. Anyway, hope to meet you somewhere someday in person. Get a hug from you. Much love from me. Enjoy this conversation with Peggy. It's awesome. Peggy, welcome to the podcast, my lovely.
Yeah, so nice to be here, Guy.
Truly, nothing excites me more, and kind of having a backseat view of somebody's journey, having known you now since 2018, I believe. And when you reached out to me and said, look, I'm doing all this, and you said, can I share my journey on the podcast? I was like, yes, 1000%. Like, it's phenomenal. I'm so happy for you. And I can't wait for everyone to hear your story today and be able to share it
Thank you.
To the listeners.
Well, you've been instrumental in my journey, Guy. There's no question about it. I mean, I would probably say that you are, one of the major reasons why I am where I am today.
Yeah, no, it means a lot to me. It's beautiful to hear. And your little messages that come through now and then about this particular podcast episode or whatever, it's truly great. And
yeah.
So my first question to you is just to help support our listeners. If you were at an intimate dinner party right now and you sat next to a stranger and they asked you what you did for a living, how would you reply?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because I've heard you ask that every podcast. And I thought, if you ask me if I'm sitting next to somebody on a plane, I'd be saying straight away, I'm medical intuitive. I work with energy. And then if there's more questions, then I'll answer. If not, I'll just go back to my meditation or my book and leave it at that. I guess I'm sort of a little bit in the spiritual closet around some, and with my husband's conservative friends. I kind of oscillate between counselor. I do, because I'm an EFT practitioner. So I say I work with, energy. But to go to the stretch that I'm a medical intuitive now, and I'm working like in energy and removing demons and entities, it's like such a huge stretch for people. So I'm pretty good at reading that, that conservative, they could barely handle the EFT tapping. So I think the energy stuff's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, well, you'll be coming out of the closet more and more now, especially after this, when this podcast goes live.
Oh, yes. I'm ready to launch. Yeah, finally enough. Yeah.
Totally. No, it's exciting. I hear you, I feel you, and I know what that journey's like. And I still have grapples with certain parts today that I don't really share about as well, just
Mm.
because of, I don't know, it's strange, but I totally understand where you're coming from, for sure. So let's go on a little bit of a journey, because you're talking about a medical intuitive. I want to get into your story as well, because it's fascinating. But how would you describe a medical intuitive briefly?
Well, I guess a medical intuitive taps into the energy body of a person and can see where the blockages are. And, I guess there are some medical intuitives that see that full X-ray vision of the body. And I know that some people just do that and they just read and then they will tell you what's going on in your body. For me, the medical intuitive component involves scanning the body, but also then being able to unlock those blockages through just channeling divine energy and helping people unlock what needs to be unlocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't get the full picture if you're coming in for a full MRI. That's not what I'm about, but I get these mirrored symptoms in my body. So if somebody sits down, I'll go, "Ooh, I've got neck pain. Do you have neck pain? Lower back pain? How's your lower back?" And so then we start exploring from there. And then because I have this claircognizance, it just comes in and the messages come in about what it's all about. And sometimes the energy flows and sometimes I'm blocked from knowing what it is. And that's that person's journey
Yeah.
to.
No, phenomenal. So with your journey then, let's get into it, because one thing you mentioned was energy body and pain in the body. So, and how they are correlated. And from my experience with working with many people, most people are not even aware of their bodies in the first place, what's going on, and that there's an energy
Yeah.
component influencing the
Yeah.
physical component. And it's like,
Yeah.
first of all, we have to be open to that to start to understand it. But
Mhm.
then it's, how do we move through that, release it? And with your journey then, when did you really start to put things together from maybe a spiritual perspective, an energy perspective?
Yeah, well, my journey, I started off as a good Catholic girl, and then I studied politics and history at university, and it just like the human suffering was so intense. Like I just couldn't believe that there was a God that would allow that. And we might go into my theories about that later. But so I was like a full blown atheist. When you die, you die. That's it. And so my mom died tragically. Well, she died from stomach cancer at 56, and it was a real shock. And even then, when she died, I just knew that's it. She's dead. But my dad had always been this proponent of this Dr. Sarno, who was the original guy with like your chronic pain is related to subconscious rage. And so my dad healed his pain through that. So I'd always had that in the back of my mind that there was a link between that emotion. But Dr. Sarno had a very simplistic view. It was like, subconscious rage. Well, there's all these other emotions now we know about. So I guess, my journey was, I was able to intellectualize and understand that, but I still couldn't work out, well, what is causing that? I'd buried my emotions so deeply that I couldn't even access what the emotion could be to release it. So, and I suffered so many back pain, neck pain, chronic stomach issues, through my whole life, really. Um, and I know you read my bio, but it got to the point, by the time I got caught up in a riot, which was at this juvenile detention center, I had, glass shattered all over my head. I had to hide in a closet and, I was in
Wow.
lockdown in this prison. Yeah, it was pretty intense. My body was in shutdown. Like I was so exhausted. I could barely eat any foods without getting any kind of issues. My knees were, really in pain. My ankle was sore. I had, you name it. The physical body. I'd fractured my coccyx. It took over a year to recover.
Was that from the
So
riot, the fractured coccyx? Or?
the fractured coccyx was me rushing to get to work one day, and I slipped down the stairs on cycling cleats because, in my previous lifestyle, it was all about spin classes and hit training, and and, going as hard as fast as I could. And my body was kept giving me nudges, slow down, Peggy, slow down. And then finally I had to get a huge hit, as you do, to really start to explore.
So what was your position in the detention center? What were you doing there?
So I was a teacher, actually, but I was doing I'd done a master's in student in mental health, and so they'd opened up the school in this juvenile detention center, and I'd worked as a teacher when I came to Australia. So like you, I'm an expat, so I'm originally Canadian, came to Australia, 1997, and so I was working as a teacher, and it was just, I loved it. But I was in constant fight or flight, but that was what my nervous system was used to.
Mm.
Right. So that was my childhood. I've got beautiful parents, but they struggled, my dad struggled with self-regulation, and there was a financial stress. And then my mom was orphaned at 11, and her mom had been murdered. It was a horrific story. And so, my mom had, 4 kids back to back, and I was the third, and she moved house twice, I think, by the time I was 8 months old. And so you can imagine that little baby just sitting there crying. And I was a sensitive child. I used to cry a lot. So I just I guess the lessons I learned from that was shut down the emotion. It's not okay to have feelings. Nobody's going to come and, help you co-regulate. And so that's what happened. It just all went into my body.
Yeah. So then you're working at the detention center. You got a fractured coccyx, which must be horrific, the pain.
Yeah.
Because my mum had a similar accident when she was younger, and she couldn't sit down,
No.
And then you were still forced to work while you're in that pain, and then you got caught in a riot. So then what happened? Was that a tipping point after the riot?
It was a tipping point, and I ended up, I said to my principal at the time that the place is going to implode. And I guess that was where my clairvoyance was always there, but I just could see this, this disaster waiting to happen. The whole place did implode. And then I didn't have a workplace to go back to because the classrooms were all destroyed. Everything was destroyed. All of the units, all of the housing units, they had to push them all around different places in Victoria. And, I just had to pause. It was a big thing. What am I doing? Am I putting my family in danger? Really, mom can't get home from work because I'm locked in a prison, right? So I had to really look and examine. So I took some time off work. I had to. And then I was broken. I was just literally physically, emotionally broken. And I ended up at Fifth Element Wellness, which is where, and I was trying to repair my gut, and just go back to basics. Slow down and do some yoga and do some saunas and just try to reboot the nervous system. And that's where I met you, Guy.
Yeah, I know, Fifth Element Wellness. And if people search way back, the ex-owner, Dave O'Brien, was a good friend of mine who owned the fitness center. I spoke to him and he gave me the opportunity because I sold my supplement company. And he said, do you want to hold a meditation workshop at the studio? And that was absolutely. So is that the first time when you wandered into that workshop, was that the first time you'd done something like that? Or?
Yeah, I think Dave O'Brien got me onto looking at heart math. And and that was when I just started to learn about, slowing down my breath and just being aware of my heart. I didn't even know it was there. And I guess, I'd sort of just at the same time sort of discovered the Joe Dispenza stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but your explanation was so much easier for me to understand. And you really simplified it in a way that just helped me understand that, my subconscious programming. Oh my God, my subconscious, this is where it is. This is where it's hiding. Because I could intellectualize, I could say it all out, but then there was these triggers that just happen. You react in a way and you have to heal that part of you. Otherwise, it doesn't stop.
Totally. Well, let's keep going into the journey because I think your journey and how you explore and unearth the wisdom will be there for so many people because I know how frustrating it is to not be able to resolve or something that keeps reoccurring in your life, that keeps showing up in different ways, whether it be pain, emotions, or even things, reoccurring circumstances in your life as well. And once all the pieces start to connect, it's so freeing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So then what happened? You leaning into heart coherence. You came and did the meditation. I believe that's when I started my podcast back in 2018. So
Yeah.
you would have been listening
Oh,
to
yeah.
that.
I went right down the rabbit hole with you. I think I think that, I'd listened to somebody tell me a story of their near-death experience at a work function, believe it or not, a couple of years prior. And that just I went, huh, maybe, maybe there is something else there. Cause he was here's this person in front of me telling me, and I was like, I respect him. He's just a normal guy. And I thought, maybe there is something out after you die and we don't just die. And then, of course, the whole quantum physics explanation, I was really drawn to that. My theoretical brain. And I've got to, I have to hear it from a scientific perspective for me to kind of really get drawn in. So that Dr. Bruce Limpton and Teresa Bullard and, all your sort of conservative PhD people who are telling me, oh, there's actually something out there. There is a quantum physics. There is a spirituality. There is there is some divine unity consciousness out there. So I dove straight down the rabbit hole with you along every single podcast, just going, what? Oh my goodness. And then Googling and signing up for webinars and getting on newsletters. And I just devoured the information because I wanted to find, I guess, another way to release and connect and feel whole, because what I was doing wasn't working.
Mm. So then you ended up at our retreat, and you came twice.
Yes.
You came twice as well.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Which is, we've had some people come 4 or 5 times because every time they come, they learn something new. So I just want to put that out there because there's always we change, we evolve, and then our relationship to the work evolves, right?
Definitely. So the first retreat, that first sound healing was, I guess, my Kundalini awakening. It was kind of like equivalent. I was telling everybody it was like the equivalent of taking ayahuasca. And I remember just, screaming and rolling on the ground and connecting to, it was my first connection to spirit, was my dead grandmother who'd been murdered. And she kept telling me, it's okay, it's okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And that was, I just remember bawling my eyes out. But what interesting in that, we had to release, but I was very much stuck in my victim mode in that retreat, that things were happening to me. And I know that, in all of your podcasts, you'd said, okay, well, if, people would reflect back and say, oh, I know that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was not at that point yet. And I remember Petra Brezovich just coming up to me and saying to me, you chose your parents. And I thought, that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. And I wanted to punch her in the face because I was like, I wanted the empathy, right? I wanted that. I wanted to say, oh, you poor thing. Yes, you had this, this mother that couldn't show you love and you've been struggling and you're a victim to all of these circumstances. And she wouldn't have a bar of it. She's just, And I got so angry. Why would I choose that? Why would a soul choose these parents? It made no sense to me whatsoever. But it was exactly what I needed to hear because it sparked something in me that we are souls and we do choose these experiences to a certain extent. So from there, I think that was the very first time I really started to forgive my mom for everything because she was an alcoholic. She, we had an awful relationship and she was highly critical of me. She was a loving, beautiful person, but it was just my experience,
Of course.
And I couldn't intellectually understand why she was the way she was based on her childhood, but then to fully embody that and forgive, now that's the soul's journey.
When that experience happened in the sound journey, and I want to try and, because if people haven't experienced it, it can feel very untangible. And you spoke about your grandmother that was murdered that came in and was telling you it's okay. And you felt energy moving through your body, I'm assuming, because you said you felt like a Kundalini energy that's undeniable, right, when it happens.
Mm.
What did you notice from then when you went back into the world over the next few months, like how did it simmer into your consciousness? Did you notice shifts in the body? Did you notice shifts in yourself? Or is there not one point that you could put it on, but it just continues to evolve?
I was completely changed, like completely and utterly changed from that moment, from that retreat. I found it very difficult to come back and just relate to people
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
just
of
have
course.
normal conversations about mundane things. Um, because I thought there's this depth and this connection that we have that why isn't everybody talking about it? I found it really difficult. So um, it did really change me because I realized that this spirit, this connection is there for me, and it was just like I had it was like a little light, and it came back, and then it kind of closed off again, and I wanted that connection again. So I was diving down into the meditation to try to recreate those feelings, but I was quite blocked for a while.
Yeah. So you came back to the retreat for the second round, and then
Yeah.
so what evolved from there? And then we can go into you medical intuitive.
So from there, I guess the first retreat was really healing my relationship with my mother,
Hmm.
and my second one was really looking at my relationship with my husband at the time because, my husband had quit his job to launch his passion and business, and financially we were fine really, but we have been used to a particular lifestyle, and so his stress had affected my stress, and I was really stuck in the position that he wasn't doing enough to make me feel loved, you see? And it really wasn't about him. He was showing me that I needed to love myself. And so this journey is like that. I remember that particular retreat. That's actually going to make me cry because I remember we had the power of eight, the
Hmm.
8 people, and you chose me for healing. And everyone's got their hands above me. And I felt this wave. It was like a morphine drip, when I'd had my knee surgery. It was like this wave of peace and calm that came over my body from these 8 people, of this love that I'd never felt this love before. But it was basically love from them, but it was showing me that I am love. And from that moment, it was really about turning into my own self-love. And when I started to love myself genuinely and connect to myself, all of a sudden my relationship with my husband is just, it's just been amazing since then. And then of course lockdown happened and not long after, and we got so close. It was just magical for us. But it was that retreat,
Yeah.
that sparked that for me.
Yeah. Wow. There's always a lesson. Like I really try my best not to get caught up in my ego or my head these days because I get slapped immediately. And just try to be the witness of all the different things that go, because there's always a lesson. Consciousness is always wanting to show us something to allow ourselves to expand and grow. I truly believe that. And I forgot that you actually went in the healing circles that we
Oh
do.
yeah.
How would you describe that to someone? Because the energy healing is powerful. And
It's
did you
palpable.
fully surrender in that? Because
Oh, fully,
yeah.
fully surrendered. I was bawling my eyes out. I mean, I'd watched the Lynn McTaggart podcast,
Hmm.
and I really was so fascinated by that because she was this science journalist, this scientific mind. And yet she's going into this like eight, this power of eight. And I thought, wow, this has to be real. And then to actually experience those 8 people and to feel the wave. I was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't believe the power of that, of those 8 people just in their heart space, sending me healing love. It
Yeah.
was incredible.
Yeah. No, beautiful. So then you came out of that retreat, you went into lockdown, and then are you working or not working at this point now? So,
Yeah. So no. Yeah. So I went back to mainstream school, and then I started working as So yeah, I left the prison, and I went in and I started doing. I was the student wellbeing coordinator at a high school, so counseling students, which I absolutely love doing. And but I was, I just do the traditional CBT kind of cognitive behavior therapy approach with the kids.
Right.
Change your thinking, watch your thoughts, but I found it really wasn't helpful for a lot of kids who were stuck in their head. And that's when I discovered the EFT tapping, because I'd met Alia Hopkins at that retreat. And then,
Ah,
yeah, so my lockdown project was all about EFT and discovering the power of like calming the body down, and the nervous system, working with the vagus nerve. And that was really my passion for a couple of years. But I knew that there was something else. And because it still felt slow for me, you know, because I could see, like, as soon as I would see and I could see what the issue was, I was just like, well, let's just remove it. But it was like, it's a slow process, I knew what the core issue was, but we have to start with particular events and go slow. And, but it worked really well with the kids at school for sure.
yeah, yeah.
I could get kids back in the classroom after a panic attack in, in half an
Oh,
hour.
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. So it was brilliant. But it was the energy body.
Yeah, energy body, isn't it? It is a slow process because the body doesn't know if there's a traumatic event actually happening or it's just energy being released and moving. And as we develop that relationship with the body and the nervous system and it understands and learns, then it can start to really move and let that trauma
Yeah.
go. But there's definitely a balancing act into it, isn't there? So,
Yeah.
so you're in lockdown. At what point then did you go, I'm going to run with this? I'm going to start leaning in even more. Was it when you met Patrice
Oh,
or was it before that?
I did a Vedic meditation course, and it was when I was doing my meditations, I was just connecting to this bliss that I couldn't believe that, it was like taking an ecstasy tablet. Although, caveat, I haven't. Anyway, it was just this incredible euphoria. And I thought, why isn't everybody doing this? It's just this, but I didn't realize I'm quite an open channel. So it was it was easier for me to connect. And I would have my 20 minutes in the morning. I was just like, oh, this emotion and this connection. And then I was doing some cranial sacral therapy treatments after lockdown, and I would have more Kundalini experiences in those treatments where it was like my
Ah,
heart would expand and I could feel these spirits and they were entering my body and my ancestors were there. And so that's when I started to really go, right, what do I want to learn? How do I want to get there? So when I listened to one of the podcasts with Heather Ivani and I had my Akashic Records read, because I wanted to say, what is my soul purpose? She highlighted all my clairs. And I guess with claircognizance, which is that knowing, you get a little bit confused. You're like, well, did I make that thought up or did that just come but then she confirmed it for me. And what I'd always had as intuitive hits, I'd attributed to, oh, I've read that in a book or, I knew that. And then I had Patrice, I did Patrice Christofiak's, I listened to his podcast. And as soon as I saw his name and the medical intuit, I said, oh my God, that's what I wanted to do. Because I had been searching and searching. I didn't know exactly. I knew I wanted to do something else, but I just couldn't, I couldn't find the modality that was hitting the mark. So I sent him an email, got a session with
wow.
him.
Yeah, you were fortunate because he texted me about 12 hours after that podcast went live. And he said, mate, I've had to turn my booking schedule off because the year it's booked out.
Yeah,
He said,
yeah, yeah. He did tell me, he did freak out a bit. Well, I listened to it on the way to work. I got to work and I booked the session and I couldn't get in till the end of April, but he sent me an email and said, I'm called to see you earlier. And so I thought, oh my God, what do I have? Terminal cancer and he can see it and he wants to fix me. But he was called to see me earlier. And then we had this incredible 3-hour session. And then at the end of the 2 hours, he unblocked my crown. He removed some entities from my stomach.
okay, let's go there. So what did he do with you? Like, how would you describe the session and what happened? Because you are now doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. So how do I describe it? So I guess he just turns into your body and he shakes, he moves. And then I started having all this energy release. I'm shaking, I'm burping. It's like, it's really physical. And I could feel the energy moving through my body. I could, at I had my eyes closed, and it was like it was the same sensation of being in that power of 8, but it was like amplified, right? This incredible feeling of like a drug going through your body. And but sometimes uncomfortable, get a bit of nausea, because as that darker energy is coming out, you can get nauseous. I was hot, I was sweating, I was shaking, and at one stage I just said, "Oh, I think Jesus is here." And Patrice just said, "Oh, he's in the back seat," because I was doing the call in my car in my garage because it was so early in the morning. I thought, okay, Jesus is in the back seat. You laugh because you understand what I'm talking about. And then I said, "I think Metatron's here." He said, "Oh yeah, he just flew by." So I was connecting to spirit right there. And then it was just this, yeah. When everything cleared, I just felt like I was floating in the sky with this buzz and this high that it's indescribable.
Wow. Wow. So then what did you notice in the weeks coming? Like, was it like, was there any symptoms in the body, the pain? Like, how are your pain levels been, from that
Oh,
journey and everything?
oh, yeah. So I had chronic intestinal issues, where I couldn't attribute to them because I knew I was gluten intolerant, so I'd cut out that. But that just disappeared, honestly, in 48 hours. But I did get sick. I did get a head cold for 4 days after the
Mm.
clearing. And that's what happens, right? Is that your body is shedding all the stuff. And you've got pain in your neck right now, don't you
I do.
guys? I can feel it, actually. I actually felt it before the call. I can feel it in a minute. Anyway, maybe we can do something after the call and I can help you out with that. Um, so, yeah, so I had this chronic knee pain, and I hadn't been able to run for over 12 years. And he said, "Look, it'll take about 3 to 4 months, maybe 4 to 6 months." And I was able to run again. I mean, yeah, that was the miracle really for me. But the clarity, and then my heart space burst wide open and I was bawling at everything because I guess there was this protective layer around my heart. Um, and I was just so open. And everything was creating this awe and joy and wonder for me. Like it was like I was feeling all these beautiful emotions that was making me feel quite, I guess, grateful to be alive. Yeah.
Mm. So, how would you describe it to listeners then? Because this will merge into what Patrice was doing with you, but what you now do is with that energy field. What is, when you talk about different things being cleared? You've mentioned entities, you mentioned trauma, you mentioned, I don't know, but I know there's ancestral trauma, there's
Yeah.
parallel or past lives, depending on how you view these things. Like, how do you
Yeah.
now see it and what is going on, and how would you best describe it of how that is actually influencing the body and our lives and the pain?
So, yeah, there's a number of reasons for pain. I mean, there's your 3D life and your emotional body that you have and your relationships with your family that, we store those things, right? We have to, we think we're processing them, but we're not. They go in our bodies. Um, but then there's pain and that can be attributed to entities. Now, I know this is the craziest thing that I think I've lost a few friends over this because they just thought I'm absolutely bonkers for saying this. But they come when I'm working with a client, they come to me and it's like a visual of it could be like a snake or an octopus. And I mean, I'm just like a normal middle class person here. And this is what's happening in my head. And I'm not, mentally delusional or anything. Like entities are, I guess, spirits and bodies and people that have died that they don't really know they're died. They haven't gone to the light. They're wandering around. They end up walking in and they're almost like energetic parasites. So sometimes they can really create havoc in our stomach, um, around our throat, in our headaches, body pains. Um, I mean, my sister had surgery, and when you get surgery, you can really be opened. There's a lot of entities in hospitals, and she woke up with feeling like a gorilla was,
Hmm.
lying on her chest. And I did a clearing for her. I actually had to get Patrice to help me because there were so many. And but then she woke up the next day and it was all gone. So it's tangible and it's real, because we shift the energy. We're like conduits of channeling the energy. I take, I'm an open channel to divine energy, and it comes through my body and I transmute it, if that makes sense. Like full Green Mile sort of, if you've seen that movie, where sometimes I'm actually vomiting and I have to keep a bucket beside me in sessions. Yeah, oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah, I know. It's full on work. Yeah, I mean, eventually my nervous system's going to adapt and I won't be vomiting as much. But I am vomiting up entities when they come
It's
up.
fascinating because I think it's something I want to address on the podcast as well, because the word entities can conjure up fear, and a lot of fear as well for
Oh
people.
yes.
And first of all, I'd recommend everyone listen to Robert Gilbert.
Oh
He's
yes.
I think he was a nuclear physicist. I can't remember. He's a very analytical person, but very deeply spiritual, and he breaks all this down very well, and how everything is actually from source consciousness anyway.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And what have you found working with it? Are you fearful of it in your own life or thing?
No. No, not at all. And in fact, it's to me, it's just imagine just like a poor soul that just needs love and light.
Hmm.
That's all it is. Like and I think the word entity, yeah, it does have a bad connotation. I mean, look, there are demons and they do exist, and we have done exorcisms and, removing them. They're a bit more sticky and difficult to remove. Um, And, but there's no, it's, this is what my calling is. I know it sounds completely strange to say that I'm a demon slayer and an entity removal, and that's what I do. But that there isn't anything to be feared there, because we are just love and light, and everybody just wants to be brought back to the love and the light.
And it's all energy at the end of the day. I mean, I work with thousands of people, literally, and there's a lot of energy moving, and I'm holding space for a lot of people. And it literally is, if you hold space in heart, love and light, things things move in the
Yeah,
right way, and you raise that vibration. It's as simple as that. But for me, it's a good mirror in life, because ultimately you attract what you fixate and focus on, where your attention is, and what is the resonance intent behind something. And if we are living very fearful and in scarcity or whatever that might be, or victim mode, which is hard to see when we're in it, then we tend to continue to fixate on things that are not serving us, because it keeps us in
yeah,
ourselves disempowered. And
that's
there's a
right.
huge lesson there for all of us to, once we get that, to be able to then apply it in our lives and become
Yeah.
liberated and empowered, and support others on their journey, no matter how you look at it.
That's right. And I've often heard you speak about this in the podcast, but this sort of like, you do your meditation, you do your retreat, but then what are you doing for the other hours of the day? And how are you living? How are you approaching people? How are you processing what's happening in front of you? How are you living in a high vibrational state? Because you're not going to get entities. You're not going to take on things if you are living in a high vibrational state, which means, the emotions of anger, frustration, judgment, jealousy, envy. Those are emotions that bring your vibration down, and you become more open to those kind of attacks. So, I think, and if you're if I'm in a session and I'm not completely neutral, if I have any kind of emotion, I am susceptible to taking on some of the stuff that my client might have, and it might go into my body. So it's so like my emotional state has to be completely neutral and in just pure heart space,
Mm.
and to maintain that. And and we've got clients that we clear their field, and I'll get into past lives in a moment, but then they go on back to their life and they're back into victim mode, they're back into blaming, they're back into poor me, and there's not a lot of forgiveness, and there's a lot of anger and resentment, and then you just keep getting the same stuff back. So it's important to live that high vibrational life, and have an outlet for your emotions that are healthy and not to dwell. Because I think the state of anger and frustration, those are normal human emotions. But if we just allow them to be fully there, they'll process in 90 seconds,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Exactly. Then with all of what you're sharing, let's move into then past lives. What have you experienced? What have you explored? What's your belief around past lives now?
Oh, they are 100% part of who we are, and they affect our soul and our energy body. Um, I think that, I've seen way too many things to not believe. Um, past lives can really affect the energy body. And I think, there's some Buddhist monks that say up to 80% of physical ailments are due to past lives, which is completely crazy if you think about that. Now, certainly, when people have, like, there's some common themes around, let's say, throat issues. This is like, in past lives, there's that witch wound from having been killed for speaking your truth, or anybody who's tried to speak their truth, they've had their head chopped off, they've been burnt at the stake. And these visions just come in my head in these sessions. So, people that have witnessed a lot of trauma, they can have eye issues. People that have been, I worked with one client and I just said to her, she said, look, I don't know what, can I book another session? I said, look, I'm very called for you to do Amy's group, which was all about removing the vibration of toxicity in the body. And in that group session that she went to, that I was present at, there was a person in that group that had burnt her alive. So her skin stuff was related to that. So these groups are never random. They're absolutely never random. And the healing happens within that group as we are shedding and releasing the vibration from that particular time in past, where there is like forgiveness, they're releasing, I'm releasing. It never fails to amaze me.
Yeah.
Never fails.
Right. And if people are listening, I doubt that people listening to this are skeptical because, they might be very skeptical. I don't know. But generally, if you're, 3/4 of the way through this podcast, there's definitely an open inquiry. But if you are skeptical, I always encourage people, you got to explore, you got to experience. You're only going to get there through experience. You're not going to get there through analyzing this through the mind. It's like have a session, see what happens, like,
Yeah.
come to a retreat, explore what's going on, like until you throw yourself in and start immersing yourself in it.
Yeah, I think, look, for me, it was the eminent psychiatrists, the professors, the psychologists with PhDs that have done research into this area that that solidified it for me to understand it as a concept.
Of
And
course.
then, there are research papers, people have done research. There are, and the children that speak about these past lives, where would they make up this information from?
Yeah.
It's not. And what's interesting is when I'm in a group session and I get a hit, a download that somebody's connected from a past life, and somebody gets the exact same hit, and then somebody else gets the same. How can I make that up when everyone has the same thought at the same time? They say, "Oh, I saw a club. Oh, yeah, I saw the club too with the spiky ball."
Yeah.
We're all seeing the same thing, the same way the person died. How does that happen?
What are your thoughts on why the energy body is still holding it, and why is it being released, or is it there to help us learn or understand an aspect of ourselves? How do you view it all?
Yeah. I really look at it through the karmic lens.
Okay.
And I think that, I think we do choose our avatars in this earth game. But I believe that there are karmic lessons that we are choosing to go through. And part of the karmic lessons, if we are not living in a high vibrational way, we will accrue karmic debt and we will come back and that will manifest in our body. We might have, it could be chronic illness, pain, suffering. It could be accidents, financial difficulties. So I believe that a lot of our our circumstances are related to past lives and related to the karma that we have accrued in those past lives.
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So then moving forward with your journey then and your life, like you've learned all this, you experienced this. I might get into light language as well in a moment, but
Oh, yes. Yeah.
yeah, but then at what point did you fully embrace this and go, right, I've got to like, do you still have a day job, or is this what you do full time, or?
No, no, I don't have a day job anymore. Look, I'm flexible in the sense that I can do emergency relief teaching if I wanted to work in a school. I've got some counseling clients that I still have that I'm doing EFT tapping with. But no, I'm fully launched. And it was literally, so I had the session with Patrice in the first week of March. At the end of the session, he said, I want to put you on my medical intuitive directory and send me a photograph in your blurb. And I was like, what are you talking about, Patrice? And so then he started the mentorship, which he has, which is an amazing, application only mentorship process. But within a week and a half, he asked me to join a call and help with a healing. So we really are firmly in the mind that, one-on-one healing is powerful, but when you add 2 or 3 practitioners, it doesn't double or triple, it's exponential. The
Mm.
healing is so fast and it's fun, and we have a laugh and we connect, and the client is just, supported by this circle of people. And it was after the very first session in March, and I went to bed and I started crying. I said to my husband, this is exactly what I want to do. So I had my blurb on that, by May, I believe, and I was taking clients from then. So, so I'm fully launched now because I've finally found this is exactly what I'm meant to be doing.
Of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what would you say to anyone listening to this that is maybe still in their day job, or that there's a like, place yourself back to a few years ago where, there's a pull, there's an urge, there's something, but might not have the courage to take that step yet, or are sitting on the fence, with their own journey.
Yeah, that's it. I think you have to trust, and this is something that this is part of the earth game. It's just learning to surrender. And when you fully surrender and trust, and you are fully aligned with what you want to do, because the thing is, and this is why I'm very drawn to your work, Guy, when you have no ego. I mean, maybe you say you have a little ego, and Patrice has no ego. It's like when you try to put the ego aside, and when you are living from your heart, and you are genuinely there to help people. I mean, yes, you have to make a living. You have to trust the divine that this is exactly what is going to happen for you if you are aligned in what you're meant to do. Now, the timing aspect is, I think I would say, sometimes you've got to do both for quite a while. Sometimes you got to cut down to part-time to supplement. But it's when we get in that doubt and that self-doubt, that's the problem. And you've got to find your community. You've got to find your people so we've got this great community. I'm on calls all the time with the people that I've met through the mentorship, and we're supporting each other. And I send people clients, they send me. I mean, I'm not on social media with my business yet. I don't have the time, or I'm not, it's all word of mouth. And it's all been like that so far.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I send clients to Amy and Marisol, and there's other healers that we just swap them around. Patrice sends people to me, and
How wonderful.
so yeah.
Yeah, no, good on.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you. It's amazing what you're doing. It really is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to touch on it just a little bit, because light language has come up a little bit. What's your thoughts on
Yeah.
that, and how do you apply it in your work, if you do?
Yeah. Look, light language is, it's an essential part of the process. It's the language of our soul. It's like, as Patrice describes it, when you look at a baby and you're going goo, 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 gaga, it's just like pure love. They understand it. They look back and they could hear exactly what you're saying. It's gibberish with intention, but your soul knows their soul gets it. And it could be a puppy or a baby, but you know that that's what that is. And so now I've got full body goosebumps. That's really beautiful. So when you connect to the light language, which is and we it's the most powerful technology that we have to transmute, believe it or not. And what I really like about light language is that you don't have to relive the trauma and tell me about what happened to you when you're 5 years old. You can release it in light language. And so, and I mean, my light language has frequencies and messages and, there's activations in it. But I like to get the client to find theirs, right? This is the thing, like discovering their own light language. And when they speak, it might start off as just like and it's so powerful. Even those first few words, that's actually the stuff that makes me vomit the most. When I say, look, we're going to try to release this past life, but I want you to set the intention to release it, but I want you to speak in light language. And, or speak the light language of, sometimes it's something crazy or, and when they start speaking, it's so powerful. And then they have a tool for themselves to walk away with, right? They get hit off by some road rage. You speak some light language and release it. I can't tell you how powerful it is. I've walked around, parks just releasing and speaking in light language because maybe I don't know why my neck is sore, but I'm going to set the intention to release my neck pain in light language, and it just comes out beautifully. It is the technology of the future. And, my light language changes depending on who's coming through. So I'm an open channel when I'm working with people. So, I work with all sorts of different people, like, masters or whoever you want to call them, divine spirits, Metatron, Master Sui, Buddha has come through, Da Vinci helped me work on somebody's spine. And then the light language comes through and it's completely different for whoever is coming through. It can be a galactic being that comes through.
All sorts.
And for whatever, it's the frequency that the person that we're working with needs to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up the podcast, Peggy?
Oh, look, I think, the journey of healing and it shouldn't be done alone. Because I know there's a lot of people that sit in those meditations like wanting to release, and you can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes months and months and months. Find a group, book a session with someone and amplify and speed up your journey in a way and learn the tools yourself that can quicken. There's so much technology out there. And I mean, light language that can really help people release it. The power of groups is the future. Is the way of the future.
Yeah, 1000%. That's why we bring people together all the time. It's like it's magical because then people get to, like you say, share from their experience and vice versa. They experience this. They don't feel like they're going crazy. They can relate to it. It removes a lot of the fear of what might be going on because there's other people experiencing it too. And then once you remove that and feel connected again to others that get you.
Yeah. And if you live by yourself and you're not getting a lot of physical touch, this is going to affect your body. Get your massages, look, self-care and looking after yourself, like that physical stuff and the grounding and connecting to earth and getting in the water, doing your yoga, doing your breath work. It's so important for your vitality.
Totally. Where can we send them? I love links in the show notes, but you got a website now?
I do. It's peggyo.com.au. Nice and simple because my surname is a bit long. We also have, I'm also on the medical intuitive directory. I'll put it in the show notes as well, where you can find other practitioners that might suit your time zone.
Yeah, amazing. How do you pronounce your surname, sister?
It's Oberthier. Yeah, Oberthier. It's an unusual one. Yeah.
Peggy, look, I'm so happy for you, and thanks for coming on the podcast today. And I'm excited to see where your journey goes. I'm sure it's just going to keep flying. Like it's amazing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Guy.
Thank you.